Newcastle United travel to Brentford on the weekend. Is it a must-win game? Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. And yes, you guessed it, it is a preview because we travel to Brentford on Sunday in what is a must-win game for Newcastle United. So coming up in this episode, I like to spend my preview speaking about the opposition a little bit, and that is exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm not even going to be sorry for it. So we are going to look at Brentford, look at their style of play. Has anything changed since Thomas Frank left? Are they set-piece specialists? How Newcastle United can beat Brentford, looking at the previous records. Then we're going to predict the starting 11 for Newcastle United. But I want to hear your thoughts, your predictions for the game ahead, because this is a must-win game. I've been speaking all week about a two-part series. After that shit show against West Ham on the weekend, we need to bounce back with a result. We had a nice game against Athletic Club. That was a perfect game. I didn't look at that Athletic Club game as a bounce-back game because the way you respond to that West Ham defeat is winning in the Premier League. So I looked at this week as a two-part series. The game against Athletic Club, did we really learn anything? Probably not. Was the game just easy for us to cruise through? Yes, it was. Were we sloppy in possession? Yes, we were. Were we great on the night? No, we weren't. Was it a routine win? Yes, it was. So this game against Brentford is how they... So this game against Brentford gives us a true reflection where Newcastle United are at and if they're going to bounce back from that West Ham defeat. And let's be brutally honest about it. Although we're going quite well in the Champions League, we haven't been great in the Premier League this season. Let's be brutally honest about it. Even our wins have not really been convincing. So I want a win against Brentford, but I also want a good performance, some individual performances, and as a collective, I want to see a little bit more just to give us some hope going into the back end of the season that we are going to achieve our targets. It's funny when you look at Brentford and Newcastle United because we kind of had a similar summer. Alexander Isak throwing his toys out the pram like a petulant child. Johan Wissa doing the exact same. So I think both of us kind of have respect for each other, but also hate the way our players acted in the summer. It's quite fascinating how the two fans took it. The two fans didn't really take it very well, but Brentford have had a similar season so far at Newcastle United. There's been ups, there's been downs, and there's been inconsistencies. Brentford sit 12th in the Premier League table. Newcastle sit 13th. Brentford are 1 point ahead of Newcastle United. So if we win, we'll move above Brentford, and that should be our target. But when you look at each of our 10 games this season, this is how it looks. And as you can see, Brentford are quite similar to Newcastle United, where they're kind of losing the games that they're expected to win and winning the games that they don't expect to win. They drew with Chelsea, beat Man United, and obviously beat Liverpool as well. By the way, do you like the little graphic I've just created? I think it looks pretty cool with the circles and the badges in, yeah. Quite proud of myself, I can't lie. But even by looking at that, you can tell both teams have been consistently inconsistent. Now, Brentford is always going to be a tough place to go for any side. Brentford have got some quality, individual brilliance, and they're well drilled as a unit, so it's going to be a difficult game. I actually enjoy watching Brentford. Very direct, they're quick, they've got pace in their side, they're aggressive, and they play to their strengths. And that's one of the beautiful things about Brentford. But Brentford has traditionally been a tough place to go for anybody. But has it been for Newcastle United? I'm actually going to try and give you some hope here because a lot of you guys probably sitting there thinking, this isn't the right game for us to have. Brentford right now is a tough place to go, and we could have picked an easier game than Brentford away. However, Newcastle's record against Brentford actually makes up for some good reading. Brentford have only won one in their last 8 games against Newcastle United, both home and away. And as a result, sure, in 2022, we went there and beat them 2-0. We'll beat them 5-1 at home, and then we'll beat them 2-1 away from home, and then we'll beat them 1-0 at home, and then we'll beat them 4-2 away from home. And then their only victory against Newcastle United in the last 8 games came in 2024 when the beat was 4-2 at their place. But in the lead up to us winning the EFL trophy, we actually beat Brentford 3-1. And then after that, we'll beat them 2-1. So we actually do have a very good record against Brentford, which gives us a nice feeling going into this game, despite how bad we've been this season. On top of that, Newcastle have scored in all 8 of their Premier League games against Brentford, netting 21 goals in total. It's their highest goal per game ratio against any side. So we know we've been absolutely abysmal, let's be honest, at creating opportunities this season. We're ranked in the bottom, pretty much in the relegation zone for XG. So us in creation have not been going hand to hand this season. But it's good that we do score a lot of goals against Brentford. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case on Sunday, but surely it brings some positivity and a good feeling going into the game on Sunday. However, Brentford tend to do very well against non-London teams. Brentford have won 11 of their last 17 home Premier League games against non-London teams. But being perfectly honest, I'm almost 100% sure this is going to be a much more difficult game against an injury-hit Athletic Club, and we had home advantage. Away from home, we've been abysmal this season. We've won one game away from home all season, so that needs to change. If we want to qualify for Champions League, you've got to beat teams like Brentford, without disrespecting Brentford, because I've already spoke about how much I like them, and they've lost some players, and it hasn't really impacted them. But going into this game, I don't think it's about what we do off the ball. It's about what we do in possession. I'm actually really relaxed about us defensively. We've actually got a really positive defensive system, and it works extremely well. We don't give up many chances. We don't concede many goals. It's about what we do in possession. I want to see us be courageous, brave, moving off the ball, supporting each other in possession. And we will talk about all that. But firstly, let's talk about Brentford a little bit, because has much changed since Keith Andrews took over Thomas Frank? And Brentford obviously lost some key players in the summer, and a lot of people were talking about them for relegation, but I actually think sitting comfortably mid-table is quite good for Brentford, considering the turnover they had in the summer. Brian Mbeumo, Yohan Wissa and Kevin Shorter scored a combined 50 goals in all competitions last season. Now, I know Kevin Shorter stayed. Obviously, we've signed Yohan Wissa and he's not available for this game. Man United signed Brian Mbeumo, but that would impact any side. So the fact that Brentford are sitting comfortably mid-table despite the turnover is really impressive. Now, Thiago has really stepped up the plate this season. His first season at Brentford was wrecked by injuries, but he scored 7 goals in 11 games in all competitions. He scored 6 goals in 10 games in the Premier League. So he's a man in form at the minute. Now, even if we look at the comparison between Thomas Frank and Keith Andrews, tells you exactly what's changed. Now, under Keith Andrews, they've had less possession, they've scored less goals, only fractionally. They've conceded more per game, which again is only fractional. The shots per game has come down, the touches in the opposition box has come down. Long passes has come down, but again, they're not too far away from each other. But what has went up is fast breaks. Under Thomas Frank, they were averaging 0.7 fast breaks per 90. Under Keith Andrews, averaging 1.6. When Thomas Frank left, Brentford decided to promote within. Keith Andrews was working under Thomas Frank as a set-piece coach before he got promoted. So have Brentford improved their set pieces? You would think so, but actually they haven't. Goals via set pieces this season are actually their lowest since they gained promotion of the Premier League in 2021. And in fact, it's been dropping pretty much every year. And you can see on the graphic how many goals and percentage they scored from set pieces in each season. Now, what they have brought this season is the long throw specialist. Michael Coyote, his long throws are dangerous. They're just like corners. He is an absolute weapon on that right-hand side. This is something that we need to be wary of, defend properly and do it to a high standard. But with players like Malik Chow, Sven Botman, Dan Burn, who are all monsters in the air, we should be more than comfortable to defend them. But again, it's something that we need to be wary of. So moving on, Thomas Frank was known for being tactically flexible. You often heard that whenever you were speaking about Thomas Frank and Brentford. So what's Keith Andrews like? What formation does he play? Well, again, just like Thomas Frank, he's shown tactical flexibility this season. Now, I've used Chelsea and Liverpool as an example because he come up against bigger teams, but picked up points from both games. So Brentford have been either lining up in a 4-2-3-1 in 6 games this season or a 5-3-2 in 3 games this season. Now, what I found interesting was against a 5-3-2 is pretty much seen as a defensive shape. So against Chelsea, he went to a defensive shape and try and beat them on the break. But against Liverpool, he matched them man for man. So I actually think he looked at that game and thought, we can get at Liverpool. And I actually think he might do the same against Newcastle United. So I actually think Brentford will play a 4-3-2-1. And when you've got pacey forwards like Kevin Shorter and Danjo Tora, they will break on you. So if we dwell on the ball in the midfield and do what we have been all season, let Brentford overturn the ball, they will punish you. Brentford are so good at moving the ball quickly into advanced areas. We've seen that goal against Liverpool, where Jordan Henderson sprayed over the top, and then they created a one-on-one situation. So they don't really keep possession. They're happy to concede possession overturn the ball, and then they break on you dead quickly. Do you know what player I love watching? I think he's incredibly underrated, and his underlying numbers are terrific. Mikael Damsgaard. We can stop him. We can stop Brentford. He's somebody that will get between the lines, receive the ball on the half turn, and he just knits everything together in that final third. Jordan Henderson does it a little bit behind him, and he's somebody that will orchestrate attacks. So we need to stop those two in their rhythm. I believe if you stop those two in their rhythm, you can really get at this Brentford. So I do honestly believe the midfield battle will be absolutely key in this. Whoever wins that midfield battle will start to drive this game, will start to control this game, and really put the opposition under pressure. But has their system changed or their style changed under Keith Andrews? Well, it's quite similar because he's continued that high intensity, but he's brought a little bit more directness in possession. So it's all about counter-attacking, aggressive pressing, and exploiting set pieces. So he has maintained some of Thomas Frank's principles, but he's stamped his own identity. Now, what Brentford are excellent at doing is being organised out of possession. The press as a unit, the compact, and their defensive structure is really central. And I think this is the key to us beating Brentford. And the way I've done it, when I'm assessing teams out of possession, one of the first things I look at, and it might sound simplistic, is goal kicks. Do they press high? Do they mark zonal? Do they go to a man-to-man press? Are they sitting in their compact shape? Brentford tend to press high, so they will be aggressive on goal kicks. So what they'll try and do is squeeze the pitch to win the ball high up the pitch. Now, you know what type of game you're going to have against Brentford. They are one of the most hard-working teams in the Premier League. They will run for days. They've got athletes in their side. So we need to match our intensity. If we have a performance like we did against West Ham, say goodnight to 3 points. Say goodnight to any points. Now, I've just spoke about Brentford being hustlers. They are hustlers. Like, they earn their victories. They work hard in and out of possession. And the statistics show that as well, because only 3 sides have covered more distance in the Premier League than Brentford. And just to prove that they don't just sit back and invite pressure on and hassle opponents from deeper areas, they rank 4th in the Premier League for high intensity pressures in the opposition half. Now, when you look at high pressures all over the pitch, they rank 2nd in the Premier League. Now, what's beautiful about Brentford off the ball, and honestly, I think there's an art to controlling games out of possession. You don't need possession to control games. And I think Newcastle United need to get better at this, at controlling games out of possession. But Brentford do this brilliantly because when one presses, they all press. Even if somebody mistakenly presses or does it at the wrong time, they go. And that is a beautiful thing. They always act as a unit. Now, Brentford are very, very compact, and there is a way to get around Brentford. And before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about them in possession. They play with directness and speed. Brentford are extremely direct, forward thinking, and break fast, especially in wide areas, and plays a high line percentage. And I always talk about teams playing forwards. You play forwards to try and beat the opposition, side to side, backwards passes. Yes, you've got to do it at times, but the priority should always be playing the ball forwards. That's where you punish opposition. That's where you hurt opposition. Newcastle United need to play more forward passes. That is exactly what Brentford do. They direct, they play with speed, and they try and make the game as difficult as possible for you. In fact, making the game difficult, Brentford actually sit top of the Premier League for percentage of forward passes completed with 37.8%. Who sits second? Sunderland with 37.3%. And on top of that, Brentford sits second for goals on fast breaks with 10, only behind Crystal Palace with 14. Now, a lot of people say, well, they're just long ball merchants. They play a lot of long balls. It's not playing long balls. It's playing with purpose and playing to your strengths. That is exactly what Brentford do. They move the ball into the space and they break quickly. They've got a lot of runners that are direct, running in behind. When you've got players like Jordan Henderson in midfield, he's got the capabilities of finding them. And I want Newcastle United to do this a bit more. When Nick Valdemara drops deep, let's get bodies running in behind because you're stretching the game. So that does 2 things. You're giving more space for Nick Valdemara in possession if he's got room to turn on the ball, but you're also creating a threat in behind. Now, we need to start doing that a lot more. And that's what I want to see. I want us to be brave. I want us to be expressive. I want us to be direct. I want us to play with speed. We're not doing that anymore. We're too sluggish, sloppy in possession. But look, it was a good win in the Champions League midweek. And I'm not taking away anything from that victory because we needed that victory. It was a nice game to have after the West Ham game. But this is where it gets difficult. This is where we need to step up in big moments because that victory against Athletic Club didn't really answer any questions that we did have coming off that West Ham game. So this is a perfect opportunity for the players to show that West Ham was just a blip. So how do we beat Brentford? If you look on the right image, Brentford's average position, they're one of the most centrally compact teams in the Premier League. And I've looked over a couple of defeats that they've had this season, and they get punished in wide areas, especially targeting their left back. They got beat 2-0 away to Palace last game, and as you can see, Palace really attacked their wide areas, especially the right-hand side, and Fulham did the exact same when Fulham beat them 3-1. So we have to play with dynamic fullbacks or dynamic wingers. And I've said this so many times, don't play Joe Linton and Dan Burn at left back because you need one of them supporting in wide areas and stretching the pitch because that gives freedom to your wingers. Now, me personally, I would love to see Lewis Hall play because I think, because you've seen the difference he brought when he came on against Athletic Club. The whole left-hand side just looked different in a good way. Now, I'm not trying to shit on Dan Burn because I love Dan Burn. He's a kid from Blythe, living his dream, and he's been absolutely superb for us. But you've got to play what the game needs, and the game needs dynamism on the wings. Because if you look over Brentford's conceded goals and defeats this season, there's been a blueprint on how to beat Brentford. Pressing highly, overturn the ball, and exploiting wide areas. Brentford are happy to concede possession. They rank third bottom for average possession this season. So Newcastle need to use the ball smartly, use the pitch, make the pitch big, create space for yourself in possession. So we've got to be more comfortable in possession. We've got to use the ball smartly. None of this sideways passes I always see. I always speak about never playing on the same line. Against West Ham, we were consistently playing on the same line, defensively and in possession, and it was super easy for West Ham to play through, but it was super easy for West Ham just to defend against because everything was played in front of them. Now, when you don't play on the same line, you create angles, and that allows you to play the ball forwards. So that's what we need to start doing in the middle of the pitch. And I can't lie, in possession, I am desperate for some creativity, some bravery, some courage, some expressiveness in possession. Somebody just to spark something. Sometimes you can flip a game, just try by dribbling, trying to beat your man, creating a one-on-one situation and getting past him can completely change the complexion of the game. That's not what we're doing at the minute. Everything just looks all neat and tidy and comfortable and side to side and slow in possession. That's not going to win you games of football. So whoever starts on the wings, I want to see them getting at their man, receiving the ball, opening the body shape, being positive in possession, really driving forward, driving your team forward, being progressive in your play. Because if we're slow and lethargic, Brentford are so good defensively, they're just going to sit in their compact shape and then you're going to struggle to break them down because we don't have that number 10, that creativity, somebody to play through the lines. So we need to do it a different way. And that is by being expressive in attacking space. Now let's get talking about the predicted 11 and speaking about what I want to see from individual performances. Now I know you're probably sitting there thinking, you spoke about Brentford for the majority of the video. I want my previews to be more about the opposition than Newcastle United, because I speak about Newcastle United 7 videos a week. Now, 1 video a week about the opposition to learn about them, what to expect from them is what I'm trying to give. I'm trying to give you something different to what other people give you. So yes, we've spoke about Brentford a lot, but now we're going to speak about Newcastle United. So this is what I think Eddie Howe will do, apart from one position. Now, that position is left back. I think Eddie Howe will start with Dan Burn just for the set pieces, the long throws, because you want an extra big body in there. But me personally, I would look at us offensively. I want us to take the game to Brentford. That's why I would start Lewis Hall. Now, I'm basing this game off Anthony Gordon being injured. We all know he's got that hip problem. But again, I don't think that takes away anything from his performances this season. Now, I'm recording this video before the England team is announced. It'll be interesting to see whether he's in that squad or not. In a selfish way, I'm kind of hoping he's not, because I think he looks like he can do with a bit of a rest, some downtime, go on holiday somewhere, just reflect, get away from football and just reset the mind, reset the body. And I think that's what Anthony Gordon needs at the minute. So if you're asking me, I wouldn't start him against Brentford and I would bring in Harvey Barnes instead. But this is how the team lined up. Nick Pope, again, with Nick Pope, I want to see a better performance. I want to see a little bit more composure from Nick Pope when it comes to just doing the basics like catching the ball. Thought Kieran Trippier played well against Athletic Club, and I want to see that performance going into this game as well. Malik Chow, congratulations on getting back into the Germany side. And if there's ever a guy that deserves a bit of recognition, it's Malik Chow. He has been absolutely phenomenal for Newcastle United this season. Now he's brought a sense of composure to our game. He's brought a sense of ability to play out from the back, and he's brought a bit of pace to our backline, which is exactly what we're going to need against Utara, Kevin Shorter, or even Igo Thiago. And I think him and Sven Botman have built up a beautiful partnership so far. But the reason why I would also start Lewis Hall at left back is because Michael Chiodi at Brentford has been one of the most underrated right backs in the Premier League this season. His athleticism, he's an attack-minded right back, but he plays with power, pace, aggression, so good at getting forward. And somebody like Lewis Hall, we need that little bit of pace in our backline to deal with threats like that. But not only will Lewis Hall deal with those threats, he will give us a threat going forward, because we need to beat Brentford in those wide areas. Then Sandro Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton in the middle. Look, I think he will start with Joe Linton because of his performance, his goal against Athletic Club. Now, one thing I will say about Joe Linton, I've said this in previous episodes, you will get a 1 in 5 performance from him. Now, I do not want to just see a 1 in 5. I want to see a 5 in 5 performance. It's okay to have a little bit of a drop off, but I want him to find some consistency where he's delivering 7 out of 10s every single game. Now, against Athletic Club, I thought he was better, but he wasn't still his normal Joe Linton self. I think he needs to add a bit more composure in possession, because you can see there's times where Sandro Tonali receives a ball, but Joe Linton doesn't have an idea on how to create an angle for him. So I do think he'll bring something out of possession, because I said in the previously, we need to do two things. Stop Mikael Damsgaard getting on the ball, and stop Jordan Henderson dictating play. Now, one thing I would say to Joe Linton is, every time Jordan Henderson gets a ball, snap into him. On his first touch, be aggressive, get in his face, stop him getting any rhythm. Because if you stop him getting rhythm, you're stopping Brentford. Now, personally, I would love to see Jacob Ramsey getting an opportunity, because I think we will lack that dynamism to create opportunities. And Joe Linton really isn't giving us that. But now he needs to start delivering in the Premier League. I mean, Bruno and Sandro, I back them guys to deliver 9 times out of 10. So I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But look, Harvey Barnes, what an opportunity it is for him to really cement his place in this side. If Anthony Gordon's out with an injury, this must be a massive opportunity for Harvey Barnes to say, yeah, I'm going to play so well, you can't take me out this side. That's what I want to see from Harvey Barnes, because our wing play in this game will be key to us winning this game. So I want Harvey Barnes to do everything Anthony Gordon hasn't really done. Now, Harvey Barnes isn't really a one-on-one specialist. He's so good at just these 5 yards, little darts into space. So that's something that Nick Valdemada has to recognize. But I want him moving in behind when Nick Valdemada gets on the ball. And I also want to see Harvey Barnes getting into that penalty area in every opportunity, because he is one of the best finishers at the club. So let's get him into advanced areas. Let's get him into good goal scoring positions, because that's where he can deliver. Now, when it comes to Nick Valdemada, I want him to keep doing the same, but if nobody's supporting him in possession, I want to see him get angry with his teammates. I want to see him call people out and say, look, get around us, I'll link up, I'll bring you into the game. But you have to support him in possession, because if we don't, he just looks lost and isolated. And he's proven time and time after again, even feeding off scraps, he can find the back of the net. So when it comes to Jacob Murphy, I want him to treat Nick Valdemada like he treated Alexander Isak, because Jacob Murphy's first thought was, how can I supply for him? How can I create an opportunity for you to get all the glory? I want him to do the same for Nick Valdemada. But from an Eddie Howe point of view, I don't want to say this changing of tactics and making the wrong calls at the wrong times. If the game isn't working, give the game what it needs. So if the game isn't working, let's try Anthony Elanga. Let's bring in Jacob Ramsey. Let's bring in something different to what we've seen all season. But there you go guys. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this. That's my prediction, but I want to hear your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, away the lads.